Director of Joker, Todd Phillips.
I wish Joaquin was here. He had to go home today, but he would have loved to be here. I know, but he's phenomenal in the movie. It's his movie, obviously, so we should be seeing it.
So we've got a few minutes to just talk a little bit about the film. You may need a moment. So we will take some audience questions, but I want to begin, Todd, by just asking you about creating this world. And Joker's a character that most of us know in different incarnations. You've reinvented this in a certain way, and you've also created this incredible Gotham out of New York of 1981. Can you talk a little bit about that world that you've created here?
Yeah, I mean, it's really a take on the New York costume designer, Mark Bridges, and even the picture car guys, and Larry, of course, the DP we watched. Did you ever see Chantal Ackerman's is it Letters from Home? Yeah, which is this Belgian filmmaker in 1977. She did these amazing long takes in New York City in 1977. It's amazing in that it's essentially a time capsule. And we watch that, and you just see how the city looked back then, how the cars looked, how people dressed, and we noticed, it wasn't as crowded as the New York we know now. People weren't rushing as much. People sat on chairs outside the apartments because maybe they didn't have air conditioning, or I don't know. And it was just a different pace, and you don't really, you see stuff like that, and it just helped inform us, And of course, there's a ton of movies from that time, whether it was Dog Day Afternoon, or Serpico, or Taxi Driver, obviously, and you look at those movies and it really helped us build that world. There's also, of course, some visual effects in the movie, even though it's not a CG comic book movie, there's plenty of visual effects, clean up things you do, taking out satellite dishes, removing certain cars, that you can't get off out of the shot for some reason, and just general world building of the city, so it's not New York, changing the skyline, making it much more dense, and that kind of thing.
And I love that Chantal Ackerman is a reference point for Joker. That's fantastic.
She's an amazing filmmaker.
She is an amazing filmmaker. We're doing a retrospective, actually, at the Cinematheque, so that's good timing.
Yeah.
I want to ask you also, of course, that many great actors have played versions of this character over the years. Heath Ledger, Jack Nicholson, and so on. But I want to ask you about Joaquin Phoenix, casting him in particular for your version of the Joker. Why him?
I jokingly say he's an agent of chaos. He has chaos in him. And, you can act that, probably, but if you don't have to, there's something to that. So when we started writing this and conceiving of this, we always had Joaquin in mind. I didn't really know him at that time, but I would say that was obviously also he's a brilliant actor, he could do anything, but there's something about him, he has a spirit in him that there's a little chaos in him.
And then Robert De Niro, getting him, not just Robert De Niro, the actor, but the characters he's played in King of Comedy and in Taxi Driver, they're woven through your Joker as well.
Yeah. Well, clearly there's some King of Comedy in there. When I sent Bob the script, I said, just know this is sort of inspired by, and it's a kind of flip on the Republican where you're playing Jerry Langford now, and he dug that, but he also didn't read too much into it. It was more a nod. It has no real connection in that way. He told me some great stories about Jerry Lewis on the set. It was actually thrilling. But yeah, so Bob read it and just really liked the script and understood what we were doing, and just think he's the greatest of all time. So.
All right, let's take some questions from you, and as I always ask, please bring your very best questions for Todd Phillips. Thank you. Let's go over here. Yes?
Thanks so much for coming. Question, how is it, what kind of challenges do you face when you're building a movie around essentially a villain as opposed to around a hero?
Question is, what kind of challenges do you face building a movie around a villain rather than a hero?
Well, that was what was interesting to us, and we approached it, quite honestly, like we're doing an origin story of a villain, but the villain is the hero, and you root for him until you can't root for for him any longer. And that point is different for certain people, but you definitely, Arthur's actions in this movie are abhorrent by the end. You're not supposed to be rooting for him. So there's this idea of like, what happens if the villain is a hero at the beginning? And then because of Joaquin's brilliant acting, I kind of describe it as like, a volume knob from 0 to 11 for fun. And he slowly is turning. It's not like somebody said to me, well, when does he, turn into the Joker? It's like he goes into a phone booth and comes out as the Joker. It really, when you watch the movie again, if you ever do, you can really notice this kind of slow transformation that happens. And so yeah, the idea was to sort of do it almost as an origin story of a hero, but where you're really rooting for him and you feel for him, and then there's a point, and it's different for everyone, where you're like, I'm out.
All right, another question. Is there somebody up in the balcony there, son? No? Okay, we'll go
This
ahead.
theater is stunning.
Isn't it?
What a place to see them. What a place to show them. But what is it? But what does it look like from up there? Is it just tiny? Okay.
Excellent. Yes?
Hi.
The question is about the scene where he's sitting in the back of the police car. Was that a nod to The Dark Knight?
I mean, honestly, it wasn't, but I can see why you make that reference, and it was not out of disrespect. We love that movie. It wasn't a conscious thing, but I see the shot. In his, he was driving it. It's a wildest shot. Yeah. No, I know, it's a good point. But it wasn't done intentionally like that, but thank you.
All right, let's go back here. The question was it always the plan to include a moment of Batman's origin as well?
Yeah, it was. And we, to be clear, like, once we finally convinced Warner Brothers and DC to let us make the movie, they really had no rules for us. It was really kind of liberating because Joker is, he's an unreliable narrator already, and if you remember in the comics in one of Killing Joke, I think he says, I prefer my past to be multiple choice. So we had this sort of very open field of what to do. And to answer that, yeah, no, DC or Warner's never said, but you better put Batman in or anything like that. In fact, they probably would have rather us not include it. But we just thought it's a fun thing. This origin story of the Joker also is a tiny little bit of origin story of Batman.
Speaking of that, I think people also want to know, will we see more of this world, this universe that you're creating in terms of, will this expand out to a kind of alternate DC universe for Batman and the Joker and others?
And I've said this before, but I'll say it quickly. When I first brought the idea to Warner Brothers, it wasn't a Joker movie, because I think big. I went to them with an entire label. I said, we should create a whole nother label called DC Black. I just made it up, but whatever. I said, call it whatever. Where you're doing these kind of low-budget versions of these movies, but you're doing more character study stuff, and you get interesting filmmakers that aren't necessarily tied to the worlds that are already built by other filmmakers. So I said, first one we can do Joker, and then we can do that, and I named like 3 other things, and 3 other like directors you can get to do that. And they rightfully said, calm down, you're not doing starting a label. But that's an interesting idea, why don't you go and write it, and we'll see. So that's what we did, and whether they do it or not, I honestly don't know, and we'll see, but I think it's a cool idea.
I would love to see that. All right, time for 1 or 2 more questions. The question was about the representation of this Arthur character as having mental illness and struggling. Are you worried that people will get lost in that rather than seeing him as a villain by the end?
Well, I think you said, are we worried that people won't, what was the end of it?
Are you worried that there will be people who see the film and don't see him as a villain by the end of it?
Well, no, I think every movie is sort of, I watch Scarface, I like it the whole time. But no, with this, it's like, I think it's very clear that you're not there to me. Now, people can interpret movies however they want, and I don't want to say I'd be worried about that, because that's okay to view the movie through that lens. I find it surprising, but no, it's not a worry. I think it's a complicated movie, but I think movies and art can be complicated. Sometimes they're just meant to be complicated, and I think that's a good thing. There are some people that watch this movie and think none of it happened. And it's an interesting thing too, and I'm not saying this is our theory, but when he's in that white room at the end and she's saying, what's so funny, it's a joke, you wouldn't get it, that he actually imagined the whole movie, and that's not even, Joker. And somebody said that to me, a friend of mine, a filmmaker who I showed it to, and I said, oh, that's interesting too. It's hard to do these because you don't want to define it for people, and you don't want, because there's a lot of ways to interpret the movie, and I hate as the director to define it for people, if that makes sense.
All right, we'll go for just one more. We will go right here. Yes. Nero joined the project.
That's an easy one. I think about 3 or 4 months before we started shooting. I really liked the script. I went down to his office and met with him. Well, first I went to his office and said, okay, I need like 10 minutes just to be a fan because I literally love it. And I said, and I swear to you, if you give me like 10 minutes, then I'll be a grown-up and I'll be a director and I get 10 minutes. And cut to an hour later and we're still talking about like Raging Bull or something. And I'm like, okay, thank you. And then we got to the movie. He's amazing and it was such a thrill to have him. We could do one. He pointed out to me that, it was okay. You read the script, but I was going to say something, but it tends to be that anything you say on this movie gets turned into something, so then I go, just be careful.
And you said you'll take
Sure.
one more? Okay. Right there, I think. Yes, yeah, that's right.